All right. Good evening to those of you on the East Coast. Good afternoon to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, also co creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And thanks so much for joining us wherever you're watching from, whether it's live or elsewhere. If you had a chance to take a look at the title, you'll know that we have a terrific show on tap for you guys. So without further ado, I want to be able to just to dive right in. The purpose of tonight's show is to talk about a film that is near and dear to me as someone who loves horror films, and that's none other than Leviathan. I feel like, if I'm picturing myself as a cook, right, we're mixing, pieces of Alien and The Thing, which are also, movies that are dear to my heart, among many other films. Is basically a smorgasbord, if you will, of all those awesome, elements of those films. But if you're not familiar with it, it's a film that follows a team of deep sea miners that, of course, come face to face with a, mutant creature that they had um, had no intention of encountering. Is a film that made its way to theaters. It's crazy to believe in 1989, March 17th, 1989 to be exact, directed by George P. Cosmatos. And tonight, I will not be alone to be able to reflect on this film, which, as you can see here, and what I have here in the background is celebrating, is coming up on its 35th anniversary. Insane. Insane. So, without further ado, I want to be able to hop right into the guests that we have tonight to be able to talk about this film. And of course, the guests that I have, they don't need any introduction, but I will provide an introduction anyway. Our guest tonight will be none other than Ernie Hudson. You know him as the OG Ghostbuster, Winston from the Ghostbuster films, of course, as Warden Leo Glenn in HBO's Oz, and Sergeant Albert in The Crow. Let me bring him on now. Mr. Hudson, what's going on, sir? How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Life is good. I got no complaints, and yeah, just very very thankful. Taking it one day at a time.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So, as I said, I wanted to be able to hop into this film. I feel like it's a highly underrated horror film, and I know at the time, there was a lot going on in trend wise with film, a lot of films that were happening underwater, right? So I feel like it kind of got lost in the sauce, so to speak. But
Yeah,
in the time since, I feel like year after year, as more and more people have a chance to look back and reflect on it, it gets much more love. Or if we're talking in the case of like sports, I know we were talking about sports, just a moment ago offline. It's starting to finally get his flowers, right? Finally,
right.
finally. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So just to hit the ground running, can you tell me first, how that involvement came about? I mean, I understand that the director, I was mentioning his name, just at the top, that he had personally reached out to you. You didn't have to audition, if I understand, and he had reached out to you to do this film. But can you tell me, what struck you? I mean, I'm sure it was flattering to be asked to do it, but I mean, there had to been more there that you saw that told you say, okay, all right, let's give this a shot. I'm intrigued by this film.
Yeah, no, well, it's always nice, especially in those days, to be personally asked by the director to come aboard. Um, George called me, and I'm not sure. I was shooting a movie, and honestly, I can't remember what the movie. It might have been Weeds.
Okay,
I might have been Weeds, but anyway, I was working on a film, and he called and said he was doing this movie. I got the script, loved the whole kind of horror, underwater, and I liked the character that that I was being offered. So we were shooting in Italy, which was I hadn't shot there before.
that doesn't hurt either.
Um,
Shooting in
no,
Rome, that does.
yeah, we're shooting in Rome, and I think we were there for maybe 4 months. We were, I think, maybe 3 months in Rome, and then we were about 3 weeks in Malta.
Okay.
And at that stage of my career, the idea of shooting out of the country anywhere was sounded like a lot of fun, and it was a lot of fun. But George, I'm not a big swimmer, and of course the end of the film it required me to, I'm underwater, and so that was a bit of an issue. But we somehow got through it. But it came out when the Deep Space Nine, I think, released. Suddenly, everybody wanted to do an underwater, the Abyss. I think.
Yeah, there were a lot. It was the
Yeah,
Abyss. It was Endless
yeah,
Descent, Lords of the Deep. Like it was a lot.
yeah,
There was a whole
yeah.
bunch of them out there.
And it was. I just felt that Leviathan sort of stood on its own. It had a great cast. Richard Crenna was Peter Weller, Amanda Pace, and it was Danny Stern was in it. It was a great cast. And I really enjoyed working on it. It's always hard to predict how well the film would do. I expected that it would do a little better than it did, but like I said, they all kind of released around the same time, which didn't help the film either. So, but as you say, as the years go by, I meet more and more people who discover the film and enjoy it, and so I'm very very proud to have been a part of it.
Awesome, awesome. So, can you tell me more about just the process of shaping that role of Jones? Because I understand there was a lot that went into. You were just mentioning, where you guys were on site at in Italy, but from what I understand, there was a lot of things that were going on that made it, to put it lightly, at
Yeah.
times very arduous. Whether it was, with doing, multiple takes just by virtue of, from what I understand, George's style of shooting, the
Right.
film,
Yeah.
and even the dive suits themselves, I understand, were like incredibly heavy and arduous to move around in. So, could you comment, speak further on that?
Well, the whole underwater thing, which was I was a bit concerned about because, like I said, I'm not a swimmer, not that comfortable in water. I can swim, but not comfortable. Just
Sure.
but it turned out we weren't underwater. They had the sound stage, and they created this process where there were like
Draco
these
Wet look,
little,
right? I think they
yeah,
call it.
yeah. So with all these things sort of floating around, it looked very effective. So that took a little bit of my concern, but the suits, like you were saying, were really difficult to get in and move around in. But that's that's just kind of what it takes. Wasn't a lot of fun, but as long as it's effective and gets the job done. George George is a wonderful director. He's since transitioned, I believe, but um, sometimes his communication was a little lacking. And so a lot of times, I remember one time we were doing a scene, we must have done, I don't know how many takes. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, what's going on? And I went to the monitor and I saw it was just a little spot where he wanted a turn. And as opposed to explaining that to me, we're just doing it over and over and over again. I'm like, well, wait a minute, just if you just so we just now that I see what you want, we can do it. So sometimes George would express things in ways that was difficult to process. As an actor, you want to give your best and you want to be accommodating to whatever the director wants, but it was difficult. Um, and he would say stuff like, I remember saying to me once, Ernie, let's call a spade a spade. I'm like, what? So, uh, okay, all right, George. So he just had um, yeah, but I loved him and I loved working with him. But he was unique and very different.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, I don't know if there's any truth to this. I understand that you had mentioned where you guys were shooting on location in Italy, and so, by virtue of shooting in Italy, you also had a crew that
Yeah,
was, from Italy as well. And like I said, I don't know if there's any truth to this, but I guess in terms of how things operated with like the work environment of, wine being involved? Is there any truth to that, or is that a rumor that I just said that was happening there with the crew?
Of would you say wine being involved?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
consumption of lots and lots of wine.
It probably is. I've done a lot of movies, and people sometimes will say, I heard that there was a lot of this going on or a lot of that. I'm not a drinker, so a
Got
lot
you.
of times
Got you.
people will come and say, "Hey, Ernie, you want to drink?" And I say no, and then they get that I don't drink, so they don't sort of include me in their libations. You know what I mean? They
Got it.
just kind
Got
of
it.
keep
Got it.
me. Same with drugs. They say, Ernie, do you? I'm like, no, not really. And once they know that I'm not, they don't want me to spoil their high. You know what I mean? It's like, just don't invite Ernie. And so one time I was working on a movie, and the cast would get high at lunchtime.
Oh wow.
And I didn't know. I just know that I was never invited to
Wow.
go to lunch with everybody, and I took it personal. I thought, well, maybe I'm not friendly enough. So one day I kind of invited myself along. I was like, where you guys going? I'll go. And, and I got in the car, and all of a sudden the drugs came out, and I'm like, oh no. And now, and now I realize that, oh, that's why. And so I sat there just ruining everybody's high. But so there might have been a lot of wine, but I was never
Gotcha.
yeah, I
Gotcha.
was never part of that. And probably and also I find in my life there have been a lot of things going on around me that I just naively just didn't have a clue, and I'm very thankful for that. I came out to LA when I first got started. I had a good friend who was a director. He's since passed on, but we'd be at a party, and he'd come up to me and said, "Hey, Ernie, you might want to leave now." And I'm like, "What?" And I ain't gonna question
You
it.
put
I'm
two and
like,
two
"Okay,
together.
yes, okay, it's time to go. I don't know what's going on after I leave, but I'm gonna take your word for it." So I think I missed out on a lot of things, but most of it I'm thankful to not
Yeah,
be part of.
absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, similarly, with being there, and I know you had talked just briefly at the top about sometimes there was a difficulty in communication. Like, did that also happen among the crew? And did that drastically affect how those shooting days went because of the language barrier? From what I understand, that there was a language barrier between the crew.
Yeah, I think
With
maybe a little bit of that. Because I don't speak the language, and so
Yeah,
I'm not necessarily. I know some things aren't moving as smoothly as possible. I
yeah,
don't know what that's unless I'm. That's one of the things about being an actor. Unless I'm personally involved, I'm like, okay, you know what? I'll be right over here in my dressing room. You guys figure this out.
got it.
I remember I had a driver because we all were assigned drivers who would pick me up and take me to the set or drive me wherever I needed to go, really. And he was really kind of friendly. And at lunch, I was having lunch in the little common area, and he sat next to me, and he was talking to the rest of the crew in Italian, which I didn't understand what was being said. And he kind of put his hand on my head, which was like, I'm like, oh, okay, all right. I'm trying to be cool here. I don't
Right,
know. I
right.
don't know what everybody's talking about, laughing about, whatever. Um, and then the next day they fired him. And I guess what he was saying about me was either racist or insulting or whatever.
Oh wow.
I didn't get it. I don't know.
Oh wow.
So what I realized is there's a lot going on, but I'm just going to let somebody just get in my face. You know what I mean? Where you're saying clearly what I think you're saying, I'm just
Right.
give you the benefit of the doubt. And so maybe some of that stuff was happening as well, and probably it has happened over the years. But we got it done. One of the things that I had issues with George in the studio about was uh, the character. I'm going blank on the name. What did I play?
Jones.
Jones. I played Jones. So in the end of the movie,
I want to
we
get to that.
survive. Yeah.
I want to
Okay.
get to.
Well.
I'm gonna
Okay.
have you
I'll
hold that
I'll let
thought.
you.
I'm gonna
Okay.
have you
Okay.
hold
I'll
that
let
thought.
you.
I
Yeah.
want to get to
So
that. in a sec, because I know exactly where you're going at, and I have
Right,
the same issue with this film for that
right,
same very reason.
right, right.
So before I get to that, one thing that I have that I like doing when it comes to these anniversary episodes that we do is,
Hmm.
and you'll see why I paused you, is that we have I like to get into the things that you have enjoyed the most and that you appreciate the most from that
Right,
experience, looking back
right,
on it. And then if you could go back and do it again, I'm guessing that's what it is. So
right,
we could dive in on it and,
right.
and,
Sure.
and
Yeah,
talk about
yeah,
it. So
yeah,
first, in talking about those things that looking back of it that you're most proud of with this film after
yeah.
35 years. Crazy.
Yeah, yeah, no. First, most of the work that I've done, I still stand by, and I still feel very good. I like the character. I love the cast. I love shooting in Italy, and also I had my family with me.
Okay.
Which is another reason why maybe I didn't get into some of the wine drinking and celebrating and the
Yeah,
stuff that
yeah,
was
that makes
happening.
sense. That makes
At the end
sense.
of the.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah, I had my wife, and we had a little baby, and then I have two older boys. Um, who I've been raising as a single parent. And so I was always having to get back and make sure they were okay. So I didn't really spend a lot of time hanging with them. But it was great discovering Italy as well. One of the Tom Woodruff, um, Tom and Alec, their special effects guys. Stan Winston did the
Yeah, yeah,
special effects,
of course.
but
Right. Yeah.
Tom and Alec
They went on
Gillis.
direct a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Tom and Alec, they won Academy Awards and became very famous in their own right.
Right,
But
exactly.
Tom and his wife became good friends with me and my wife. And when we had days off, we traveled around. We went to Florence and just a lot of the cities. I really got a chance to travel around. The train was amazing, and yeah, so it was great being in the country. I've always planned to go back. I haven't gone back since, but so when you talk about the good parts, and also the food was amazing.
Yeah, I'm a
Food
foodie,
was
so I can
amazing.
imagine, man. I'm super jealous.
Yeah,
Super jealous.
and what I love about I maybe it's just the Mediterranean culture. Lunch would be like a 2 hour event. So we would go to lunch, and then food. If it was 7 courses, they didn't bring it out together. Everything was in time, and you could sit and relax and talk, and it was just. I found what was interesting with my trip to Italy was I have been always working on keeping my weight down. If I ate something the next day, I'd be up a pound. You know what I mean? So here in the States, I just always, try to be conscious of that. But
Yeah.
when I was in Italy, I ate more food. I mean, seriously. And I came back weighing 10 pounds lighter than when I went. I'm like, oh my God. And as soon as I got here, all that weight came back, man. It's something about the way we process our foods or
Yeah.
but Italy, the foods was just the restaurants were. There was a restaurant called Diana where they made the most amazing bruschetta,
Oh
which
wow.
is and I've looked for that every time I go to an Italian restaurant, and nobody makes it like they made it there.
Yeah.
And it's a great walking city. Would just walk and so anyway, those are the positive. And then working on the movie, I mean, Peter and it was
It was an
it was
incredible
fun.
cast. Like
Yeah, it was a
it's
great
mind
cast.
blowing, how you had that cast, and it had it been in a different time, if it would have even been possible to have that whole cast like all together,
Yeah,
like if the studio could be able to afford to have them all together in one film, all you guys in one
right.
film like that, is that
Yeah,
impressive. So
yeah. It was fun. It was fun in so many ways, and really appreciated
and you have
that
great
experience.
lines, by the way. Let me say, you have great lines in that film. So
Oh,
like, I'm that has to be fun to have some of the best lines in the film. So
yeah, it was, and I thought the character, you know. was yeah, and I think my relationships. I remember I think we had this shower sequence where one of the people had we found a corpse or something,
Yeah, they
and
took the yeah.
yeah, and Amanda Pace, I think she was crying, and so um, she was. So they were always trying to build this romantic
Or
relationship,
got you.
with her and
Well,
Peter Weller's
yeah,
character, but it didn't always naturally happen. So, but it was fun. Amanda would sort of go, oh, she would kind of come naturally to me, and I'm like, well, Amanda,
that's
you're
not
really
going to
supposed to
work
be
with the
hugging him,
film's
yeah.
plot.
I don't think
You-
you're supposed to be here, so you're going to get me killed. And I think that's why the ending turned out to be the way it was. But no, it was fun. It was
for
fun.
sure, for sure. So now let's dive in because this is one I love I love the film, but this always irks me. It still irks me to this day,
Yeah.
and it's how the film ends. And I know you feel the same way about this.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
no, from
the
from
character Jones in terms of um thinking of or picturing how they have gone through everything that they have gone. All those characters have gone through everything that they
right,
have survived and progressed through in the entire film. And
right,
a lot of times, when you're looking at horror films, while it is fun to have those horror films where, characters are doing dumb things and doing things that you're, yelling at the screen, don't do that, but they do it
right,
anyway.
right,
There are a lot of, I mean, in this film, to the credit of the characters, they are for the most part reacting the way that they should be reacting, particularly
right,
Jones out of that entire group.
right,
you know are making choices that I'll say, yeah, I would probably make that choice too. And
right,
then by
right.
the end of it, to have it all in, I'm sorry, spoiler alert, but it's been 35 years, y'all, of you getting, getting taken out, like in the last scene in the movie. Like, I'm like, what? Like,
Yeah,
why
yeah.
even bother going through the whole film if you want to play it out like that?
Well,
So,
I mean, as a
like,
African
have you
American,
still come to terms with that yet, or
well,
still
well, what I do as an actor, I just go, hey, I have my opinions, but it's my job to tell the story. So I'm here for it. But do you really want to do this? And that was always the thing with me and George. I'm like, George, it makes no sense. Why would? And a lot of, because as black people, we always go, okay, when is the
well,
brother gonna
the
die?
first
You
five
know what I
minutes,
mean?
first scene of the movie,
Yeah.
opening
And,
credits.
and and luckily that's gotten better. Now, of course,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
changed. But
yes,
back in the
it has.
day,
It
if
has.
you were
It
black in the movie, you gonna
It's
die.
gone. You gone.
So
You know it.
yeah. So now I'm like, but we've established this guy. Why?
As
No, no, no. But
capable
I think it was sometimes actors who are starring and the studios want them. They'll cater to their desires. I don't think it was Peter though. I think sometimes the studios think they're looking out for an actor, and I think they wanted him to be the last man standing. So at the end of the day, he kills the monster, he punches the bad woman, and he walks off, macho, cool. And so having him and Jones be there, I think it was always an issue that my arms are bigger than his. Um,
that was the excuse.
you
That was the
see,
reasoning.
you know, I
The
mean, you got to
reasoning
deal with
that was
reality. I'm
the
like,
rationalization.
right, yeah, no, it's he's got to be the toughest. So I'm like, okay, whatever. Hey man, you know, I'm here to make. I'm happy to be here, and but it makes no sense. Yeah, George and I mean, to the last minute, I'm like, George, and
And
sure
was it
enough, I saw
always
the
scripted
movie.
that way, or was that decision
Yeah.
made like on the fly that day?
Well, no, it was always scripted that way. I was
Okay,
always trying to get him to
to
think about
change
this
that.
and to
Got it.
change it and undo it. But I really do think it got into them feeling like they were protecting Peter, which didn't need any protecting. But
Right.
that's and I said, and sure enough, when I saw the movie in the theater, when that
People
happened, every
saying,
black person in the audience like,
"Oh,
oh, hell no. They got up and like left. So it was stupid, but hey, man, it is what it is.
It
You know,
is.
my
But I was
job is
like I
to,
said, like just if you want to go through all of that, you
yeah,
might as well off the character at the beginning of the movie, man.
yeah, yeah,
They might as
no,
well.
because
It might as well have been the first character that got infected and was off at the beginning of the movie. Like if you gonna go through all of that and do all of that, man.
yeah, yeah, no, it's but it was, yeah, it was. I'm very, I'm still very proud of the movie. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I still, um, it was fun, interesting. I always thought the monster though looked like a chicken to me. You know, when you're there on the set and you're kind of going, does that look like a chicken to you? Because it's kind of
Right.
look like a chicken to me. But I'm just saying, I'm not.
No, I hear
Um,
you. I hear you.
but
I
but
hear you.
uh, but it was yeah, it was one of the fun memories, one of the fun things that I've done. I've done a lot of movies, but I definitely enjoyed Leviathan.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So with that out of the way, I don't want to keep you too long here on a Saturday. So I appreciate you, shedding some time today, talking Leviathan, 35 years, man.
Wow, yeah.
Um, so with that, before I let you go, can you tell folks where they can find you? And of course, I mean, please stick around afterwards because we got some more to discuss, and
Sure.
let's see if we can have you back for a couple of other anniversaries that are coming up. But I will punt it over to you, sir. Tell folks where they can find you.
Okay, yeah. Well, I do social media when I need to. You can always find
Sure.
me. I think it's Ernie Hudson. You probably can tell more than I can. Ernie Hudson official, I
Yes.
believe, on Twitter and what's the other one?
I believe you also have it the same way on Instagram as well.
On Instagram. So the fact that I don't know should tell you a lot about how much I'm involved in social media.
Right, 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 right.
But
It's
when
all good.
they're projects, I mean, I have two television series I do. So around this time, I do get a little bit more involved than normal, but folks can find me there. I do Quantum Leap on NBC Universal,
Of course.
and we're in our second season, and Family Business on Netflix and BET. We're in our fifth season,
Yes.
and of course, we're gearing up for the new Ghostbusters. But so
Of
I'll be
course, a
doing
little
a lot
small
more.
film called Ghostbusters. A little small film.
Yeah, yes, I have a little movie called, but
Little
so
movie
I'll
called
probably be
Ghostbusters.
getting a little bit more involved in my social media accounts. But when I don't have anything to promote, I tend not to be as involved.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. Well, there you have it, guys. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Once again, I want to thank Ernie Hudson for hopping on and talking 35th anniversary of Leviathan. You can find me on Twitter or on X, I should say, at Brandon Choi ENT, and then also on IG at Brandon Choi _ ENT. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there, and